welcome to another Colorado Conversation. Thank you for joining us here today. My name is Ken Clark, and I'm happy and excited to be joined by Mike Lynch. He is with Western Heritage Company. Are you the owner, operator?
I am.
He's the owner, the operator. He's the boss. He's the boss.
Second generation.
Second generation. Good to see you, Mike. Thanks for coming in.
You bet, yeah.
So Western Heritage Company started back in 1976.
It did.
So that's the company side, but I want to start with the man who launched it.
Yeah, well,
Pat.
It's an interesting story. So 50 years ago this year, my dad was in the Forest Service, forest ranger. So we lived all around Colorado. I was born in Aspen, not because we're wealthy, but because it was government housing.
Sure.
And this kind of began even way back then. And so as a forest ranger, they used to do all of their own maintenance. They used to have, like workshops and stuff in each little ranger district.
Okay.
And so what would happen is folks would come across these locks, and for whatever reason they needed to get through that fence or through that gate. Usually it's like they shot an elk and it's just over the forest boundary.
Okay.
And they would come and they would cut these locks, and then they just leave the locks on the ground.
Okay.
And so the Forest Service guys, because they had these workshops back at the district headquarters, they would take them and they would cut them right along here, and then they would splale them out and turn them into belt buckles.
Now, when you're cutting off, if I rolled up on a gate, because we do a lot of dirt biking back there, and there's these gates, if it's locked, and to me, cutting this is illegal.
Yeah, that's a federal offense.
So these guys are up there, the cowboys are up there, hunters are doing federal offense, and
right.
And then your dad's like, well, what do we do with this thing?
Right.
It seems like he started to tinker with it.
Right, exactly.
They're like kind of bored, up there. What are you going to do?
Right, yeah. So what the crucial part of this, the only thing, so it says Yale on this side, and they still use these locks today.
That one looks really old.
Yeah, this one's a little older. Yeah.
It's a little. Where's the key? The key's not on it.
Right, don't have a key. Well, it was a master key, so all the forest rangers had. So if you had one key, you could get into all of these locks. Yeah. So but the crucial part of this was that the Yale Lock Company actually put the Forest Service insignia on there.
Okay.
And so that was a neat deal. So what he did is not knowing anything about metal, really, it wasn't a metallurgist. My granddad was a welder, but that's about as far as it goes. He then took that center piece and found a place here in Denver. I remember off of Colorado Boulevard.
And this is 50 years ago, over 50 years ago.
Yeah, this is over 50 years ago, really, because nothing had started then. And then he took that centerpiece out and made keychains that he just gave to his buddies for Christmas one year. Yeah. Like, no intent of having a business going.
Yeah, just these are things I made while I was up there.
Yeah, this is kind of fun. And anybody in the Forest Service go, oh yeah, that came off of a Yale lock. And so they were really popular, and the next thing you know, he's got all these guys calling and say, hey, can I get one of those keychains? Can I get one of the keychains? And then the next thing you know, my brother and I are, in government housing in the basement putting keychains together.
You're working for Dad.
Right. And they're selling these at $3 a piece or whatever, and he thinks it's quite a big deal. So then he took it and said, well, these guys probably wear belt buckles. So he took that same insignia and welded it onto a piece of brass.
And then there it is.
And that was the first. Is
this
design.
What those earlier buckles look like?
Yeah, I think there was maybe 2 or 3 of those made. And then he got really sophisticated and said,
listen,
while I'm making metal stuff, instead of just brazing it on there, I'm going to come up with this design. And so he came up with this design and sent it to the Copyright Office in D.C.
Okay.
And at the time, the government didn't protect any of its insignia. So in the 70s, you could put Army, Marine Corps, Fish and Wildlife Service, Forest Service, any of their stuff.
Anything you wanted.
Yeah.
T-shirts,
they didn't
hats.
protect it at all.
Okay.
Yeah. And so what happened is the Copyright Office called USDA and said, hey, there's somebody basically trying to copyright your logo. And this was not their logo. I mean, it was, it's got all the components of it,
sure.
But it was all in the shield.
Yeah.
And they said, well, you should probably start talking to him. Well, the result of that was that they said, okay, you can make these buckles, and we'll make it the official Forest Service buckle, and you've got the license in perpetuity. And so we've been making them ever since.
I love that aspect of that. That was over 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Pat had this great idea. Was there a celebration when he got the letter back that says, hey, or was it kind of like, oh no, like, what are we going to do now?
Right, I better figure out how to make these darn things. So.
Well, because after the Forest Service says you're our guy,
yeah,
then next we need 50 of these.
Yeah.
Or 100 of these, right?
Well, I think back in the 70s, there's thousands of Forest Service employees, and if they were going to be in uniform, they needed to get one of these buckles. And so for a number of years, they would buy them directly through us.
Okay.
And then, so we don't have a contract at all with them. Because we're not the official uniform supplier. So we do have a contract with the uniform supplier, but we can't even, if somebody comes into my shop, even though we designed this, I can't legally sell this to you.
Because it's their uniform. It's like part of their thing.
Because you may go pretend to be a forest ranger or something.
Fascinating. So that's how the Western Heritage Company began some 50 years ago. We're going to take a quick break because they're doing new things now.
Yeah.
And this is family run. It's Colorado Conversations, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to a Colorado Conversation with Mike Lynch. He's the owner of the Western Heritage Company. These guys have been making belt buckles like this for over 50 years, and they're going to continue to do it. This is the old style. Mike's telling me in the middle of the break, this one was made with lead, and now they've got a new version that is better for the environment, better for everybody that wears it.
Yeah, solid bronze.
All of bronze. And you said on this one, it's got a number on the back. This one was made in 1976.
Yeah.
So
I think that's number 2, so that's why we keep that in a display case, and we haven't bothered to shine it up because it kind of shows its age good there with a little. It
certainly does. So what is this process when you were making these? What is that process like?
So these were before we brought the production in-house. So these would go and they would be centrifugally spun, we call it spin casting. We do it in-house now in lead, and then they would take this and take it to a plater, and then they would brass plate this.
So when you say spin, are you taking like molten lead into a thing and it actually like centrifuge spins it around?
Yep.
Why is spinning it necessary?
Well,
as opposed to a pour?
Yeah, so what that process does is it gets any bubbles, it shoves the metal into all of the cavities and gets it just perfect. So that number 1 looks just like number 10,000, right? Okay. But that additional force causes that accuracy of the pour.
And now you can't use lead anymore. Or I guess you could, but it's just not as functional.
Yeah, no. I mean, you can't even find people that will plate. We don't know of any in Colorado. They've all left. We get our plating done in Minnesota now. Yeah. But they don't do much brass plating anymore, just because there's toxicity.
So now you've transformed it into this one.
Yeah.
So walk me through this process for this guy.
Same process, same centrifugal process, but we're pouring wax in. So the wax goes into, it looks like a big plate. I should have brought one along. And it just spins around. So the wax hits in there and goes in and fills all the cavities. We take the wax out. Then we take that wax and we put it with others, and so it makes what's called a tree. So we'll put 4 or 5 at one time, and then we'll put that in a can that's got a waterproof shield on it, and pour a plaster of Paris-like stuff. It's not. It's some pretty fancy stuff. But this stuff, and then we'll vacuum that to make sure that there's no bubbles, and then this stuff, when it heats up, allows ever so slightly vacuum to be pulled through, and so you get super accurate. This is the same way, Tiffany's is using the same process, the wedding rings, anything like this. We've got the machinery that's
the same stuff.
Yeah.
Now, Pat, you said he wasn't into metal. All of a sudden, the government says yes, and he's like, "Oh crap!"
Yeah.
There's some things I got to figure out first. How long did it take for these buckles to start rolling out?
Yeah. Well, we were contracting this process out, especially when it was lead. Once we switched over to solid cast stuff, he literally took the old Ram 100 down to New Mexico, which is really kind of a mecca.
Kill to have that truck right now, huh?
Yeah, right. Yeah. And brought all this equipment back. And between him and my older brother, I was still pretty young at the time, they just figured it out. And we've been doing it ever since. Now, what's changed since then is now the technology. We've got machines that will melt the metal, encapsulate all this. But it was sexy when he was doing it because you had to put a suit on it.
Sure. Sounds hot. Everything's hot.
Yes.
Dirty.
Yeah.
Now, so from then to now, you've kind of morphed. You were talking about I could get my own face on a belt buckle.
You bet. Yeah.
You were on the show with Kirk and Andrea.
Yeah.
And Kirk got online and through the AI stuff.
Right.
shoots over a photograph,
Right.
and you were like, Psh, no big deal.
Yeah, we'll do it. Yeah.
And so people at home can do the same thing.
Correct. Well, there's still some learning curve with AI stuff.
Okay.
It doesn't produce, it gives you an idea of what you want it to look like, but you can't just take that and dump it into a 3D printer. So we're 3D printing stuff now. Some work has to be done, but we're figuring that out. And honestly, the one we did for Kurt gave us an excuse to try this
Sure.
out. But literally, while we were on air with Dan, he sent this file and said, "Okay, here, I designed a buckle."
Well, and you sent me a picture.
Yeah.
And is it one of these buckles? Is it, it's a metal buckle?
Yeah, you bet.
Did you bring it?
I did.
Can I see it?
You bet. Yeah.
Look at Mike. He's got stuff.
I got goodie bags.
But for people at home who are thinking like, hey, I'm getting married, or I've got a big event, or something's coming up. My dad always wanted to, be a big cowboy wrangler and wear the big belt buckle, and now, look at that. I'm gonna walk up close. Which camera can I walk up to? Can we? Do one. All right, here we go. All right, Mike. Pardon me. We're gonna see if this will work. Back up. Oh,
there we go.
Right there. Look at that.
Yeah.
There's Kirk and Andrea. So that started with just an email.
Right.
And now the equipment in your shop is now advanced enough to take that from an idea and an email all the way to a functional buckle.
Right. Early on, well, I say early on, within the last year, we use a graphic package called Adobe Illustrator, which the short for that is AI. And so my graphic artist gal, who's been with me for 25 years, my first hire when I moved down here to Colorado, and she can take a drink napkin scribble and turn it into a buckle in about 15 minutes, because she's done thousands of buckles. Anyway, so she said, well, I need it in AI format. But nobody knows what Adobe Illustrator is. And so everybody was sending her these AI files, and she's like, no, stop.
Stop.
Because they would be doing stuff that, like, we're not sure we can do that, right? And I'm like, well, we better figure out how to do that. So this is one example here where, they sent that over and we were able to turn that.
That is pretty cool. Now, if you were to be somebody at home, and you're like, listen, we're getting married,
right?
What does something like this cost?
So we do an initial setup fee. So you pay a one-time fee of $350 and you get the first sample, right? Okay. But if you want 10,000, it's still that same setup fee. But if you want one, you can get one for $350. Cool. We're working, because once we get this dialed in, where customers can send those files and we literally just go and print them, that price will come down quite a bit. We still have to go through the same process for molding, like I said, 10,000 versus one.
Still the same deal.
And we keep them forever. So
once it's in there, you can do it again.
Right.
Does this, your dad, we were talking about it, he's still with us, God bless him.
Yeah.
Is he amazed by this technology? Like, when he's thinking, like, gosh, back in the day, it was me, a hacksaw, and just some time on my hands.
Yeah, well, and so the way we did this before 3D printing is we would send off printing plates. So acid etched plates are what 90% of our buckles are made from. So this was an acid etched plate. So the thing about acid etched plates is they're just two-dimensional, right? You get one level, then you get a bottom level. Okay. And it also drives acid etched plate makers crazy, because they're used to making everything in reverse, because they're going to either print on it. And so we're like, no, reverse it for us. I got to say, my dad was most amazed with the advances in the casting technology, where he didn't have to, he literally would pour metal in a crucible, in a big size crucible, go grab lunch, come back, stir it, okay, I think it's ready, and be able to pour 4 what we call cans of buckles. Okay. Now we pour the metal in, it's melted in 6 minutes, and it does it a can at a time. So
he doesn't have time to eat lunch.
No, not at all, not at all. Yeah. So it literally took that melting time, and I'm still amazed by it. We just got a new casting machine, and the weight difference between that one and the new one, one's 1,000 pounds, one's 250 pounds. So this thing shows up, and I'm like, this isn't going to work.
Right. It's like you get this at Harbor Freight. No offense, Harbor Freight.
Right. Yeah. This is an easy bake oven next to an industrial machine. But sure enough, it works. I mean, it's so yeah, technology. So I'm even amazed by the latest technology. But that was the biggest part. But to make those acid etch plates, my dad would literally have a light table, and he would take the X-Acto knife and cut the stuff out, get the stick-on letters that you used to be able to get, and put them on there, and then send that off to go get a plate made.
And they'd etch it, and then they'd send it back.
Yeah. So he kind of accidentally became like an artist.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we're not artists. But you can't not be in this business.
Was he originally, would he consider himself a rancher? Is he just a cowboy? Or is it just a guy that worked for the Forest Service?
He was a forest ranger, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I was blessed to be able to see all kinds of Colorado through living as the son of a forest ranger. Places where, have you ever been to this place on the White River? And I'm like, yeah, probably have. Right?
Probably have.
Yeah. So.
I tell you, Mike, thanks for coming in. We're going to take another quick break. We're going to wrap this one up with Mike Lynch. He's the owner of the Western Heritage Company, founded back in 1976. I want to talk more about how your dad was able to make this a generational thing when we come back. Welcome back to Colorado Conversations. I'm Ken Clark. Thank you for being here with me today. It's a special day for me. I get the chance to talk about heritage and family lineages and the fact that you could start a business as a grandpa or a dad and pass it off to your kids. So Mike Lynch is here. He's with Western Heritage Company. You brought me gifts.
I did.
So they were in the back. Don't open it yet. Open it up on the show. You do the unboxing.
All right.
So we're going to unbox this.
All right, let's do it.
And then we're going to talk about how your dad had the foresight to get involved with this.
Yeah.
And give you guys something to do. Hang on, put this right over here. So here we go. There's a little bow on it. Now, if it is a belt buckle with Kirk and Andrea on it, I'm okay with that.
Well, no.
Ready? Here we go.
That'd be cruel and unusual.
Nice. Look at that. Straight up Colorado belt buckle.
Yeah.
You see it right there. All right, so Mike, give me the history behind this one.
Oh, we've got so many designs. We have very few that work for the general public. You know what I mean? Because if you want a buckle, you tell me what you want me to make and I make it. We're not sitting around trying to predict what you might
Figure out what is the new buckle trends.
Right, exactly. That's a whole nother area of expertise that we don't have. Anyway, so no, I just wanted a very cool Colorado flag buckle. And
it's like the buckle is in the shape of a buckle with a buckle on it.
Right.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Super
now
cool.
back to Pat.
Yeah.
Because when I heard you talking to Dan as we were watching it on TV, I was thinking, that's the thing. That's what dads are supposed to do, set the family up.
Yeah.
That's what your dad did.
Yeah.
Now, it hit me. I was like, I got nothing like that for my kids, nothing.
Yeah.
But as we talked about this all just kind of sprung up out of just an idea what he was doing with these old locks.
Yeah.
So moving forward, does the family work in the business? Is this, because you're there, do you have other brothers and sisters?
For so many years it was, because my dad is a forest ranger guy, he obviously likes to be in the middle of nowhere. So this business really originated in Encampment, Wyoming. So he was the district ranger there. That was one of the places as we moved around all the time. When he took the big move to do this, we were actually living in Alaska. Wow. And he said, I want to get back to Wyoming. But here's the deal, I want to make a living. I want to live in the middle of nowhere. So basically, as long as we had telephone lines at the time, it was way before internet, and UPS, they were in business. So
the old Pony Express.
Right. And so it was just him and my mom before they got busy enough to hire folks. And, there was always, and slave labor from his children.
Sure.
Which, I mean, literally.
I worked for my dad, too, in the summer times. He's like, yeah, no, you're not getting paid. I'll buy you a hamburger for lunch.
Right. They made me put half of everything I made away. But no, I mean, my brother and I were, in the buffing room. And buffing metal is not a clean deal. Like, you're in a room with a bunch of bench grinders. You try to suck the stuff out, but it ends up on your face, and it ends up on your hands, it ends up everywhere. So anyway, but there wasn't really the design. He wasn't counting on us, my brother or I, getting involved in this. So I went off to the military. The military paid for my education because my dad said, well, if you want to go to college, figure it out, sure. Right? I'm busy making buckles, and oh, by the way, we're not making enough for you to go to school. And then, just over time, I got to thinking, that's a pretty cool life he's got.
Yeah.
You know,
It's like the original work from home office.
right?
You know, and it's
right.
like, yeah.
And it literally was. The house was here, and the shop was,
Over
you
there.
know, 100 yards away.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now for you, do you have kids?
I do,
Now,
yeah.
are your kids interested in this?
You know, my daughter, maybe. My son is actually at West Point right now, so he's following
Wow.
my footsteps and doing that sort of stuff. So he's not available for a little while.
Getting into West Point is a big deal. That's a
Yeah.
major honor. Congratulations to him.
Yeah,
And for you, because
yeah.
you guys raised him.
Yeah.
You're doing something right
So
up there, Mike.
yeah, so my daughter is a little more artistic, and so back to my son, you know, I'm kind of like, yeah, you can probably do better. You know what I mean? So, but we'll see. I mean, you know, I thought I could do better too until I woke up one day and went, my dad's got it pretty good.
Not a bad idea.
Maybe I could do this. But I became, you know, you don't have 401ks when you have your own business that you started.
True.
So I became the 401k. So I purchased the business. You know, I was his exit strategy. Took a number of years. He was still involved here and there.
Yeah.
Obviously, as far as being a consultant to, like, hey, Dad, how do you do this? But yes, and that took a number of years to finish that up.
You've been in it for 50 years. What's
Yeah.
the next 50 years look like for you guys?
Well, you know, with these advances in technology, like we were talking about before, you know, somebody speaks into their phone, hey, I want one of these things, and I want it in metal, and they send it to us, and we figure out how to produce it. I mean, we do a lot of other stuff besides buckles. I mean, we cast
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff, but it's small and it's got to be detailed. So
Well, and
yeah.
so for the people at home who are interested, we've said it many times, Western Heritage Company, is that how they search you online?
Yes, yep,
And you can read all of his story right there. There's pictures of everybody that's working up there.
yeah, yeah.
And is it somewhere where we can visit?
You bet. Yep, we're on 4th Street in Loveland, downtown Loveland. It's in an old bar restaurant, because that works good to have the hoods and have like that kitchen where we mix up the slurry.
Exhaust fans and whatnot.
Exhaust fans. So yeah, believe it or not, a commercial kitchen works great for casting. Yeah. So
Had no idea.
and then it's just westernheritage.com. Yeah.
Check it out. It's well worth it. Mike Lynch, I appreciate everything you've done, your
You bet.
family. Congratulations to your kid getting into West Point.
Yeah.
That's big time.
Yeah.
That is big time. So thank you. And this has been another edition of A Colorado Conversation, and I appreciate your time.
Sweet.